My jealous sister tried to ruin my relationship. Now she's paying me thousands after the lawsuit. If you told me 2 years ago that my sister would try to ruin my relationship by telling my girlfriend I was a manipulative liar, I would have laughed in your face. Brittany and I were always close. Not perfect, but close enough that I thought we had each other's backs. Until I found out the hard way. She didn't want me happy if it meant I was happier than her. My name's Ryan Miller. I'm 29 years old, born and raised in Austin, Texas. I'm an engineer by trade, but I've always been the quiet one. The observer. The type who avoids drama, even when it's standing in front of me, wearing a smile and calling itself family. I live a pretty simple life. Work hard, go for a run every morning, and spend weekends with my girlfriend Madison, who's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. We met 2 years ago at a mutual friend's game night. She laughed at one of my terrible jokes. We ended up talking till 3 a.m., and it just clicked. No games. No drama. Just honest, genuine connection. And for a while, everything was perfect. Until Brittany started changing. Let me rewind a bit. Growing up, Brittany and I weren't exactly tight, but we weren't enemies either. She's 2 years older than me, always had this big personality, life of the party, center of attention, that type. She bounced around a bit, jobs, relationships, cities, but she always landed on her feet. And when she moved back to Austin in 2021 after a rough breakup, I told her she could crash at my place for a couple of weeks while she got back on her feet. That turned into a couple of months. And I didn't complain, not at first. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. I figured she's family. She needed help. And honestly, it was kind of nice having her around. Felt like old times. But then she met Madison, and everything changed. At first, Brittany was sweet to her, polite, maybe a little overbearing, asking too many questions, being a little too touchy, but I chalked it up to her big personality. But Madison picked up on something. She doesn't like me, she said one night, while we were cleaning up after dinner. What? Of course she does. She's just intense. No, Ryan. She's fake. She says the right things, but she watches me like I'm competition. I brushed it off. I shouldn't have, because Madison was absolutely right. The first real red flag happened about a month later. Madison and I had made plans for a weekend trip to Fredericksburg. Just the two of us. I'd already booked a cabin, arranged the days off, everything. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, Brittany announced she was having a crisis. Breakup drama with some guy she'd barely been seeing. Her old car wouldn't start. Rent on her new apartment fell through, all of it, all at once. She was in tears, pacing, saying things like, I just feel so alone. It's like no one ever puts me first. And what did I do? I canceled the trip. Told Madison we'd reschedule. She was understanding, but I could tell it hurt. And Brittany? She didn't seem that upset for someone who just had a meltdown. By the next day, she was out with friends, laughing on Instagram stories. It didn't click then, but it should have. That was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Brittany started inserting herself into everything. If Madison came over for dinner, Brittany would suddenly need to talk about her life. Loudly. For hours. If Madison posted a photo of us together, Brittany would DM her with weird, backhanded compliments, stuff like, you look great. Ryan usually goes for quieter girls. Or, hope things are going well. Just remember he's not great at commitment. I confronted her once. Why are you saying that stuff to Madison? She blinked, wide-eyed, all innocence. I'm just being friendly. Maybe you're reading too much into it. But I knew her tone. It wasn't friendly. It was calculated. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday. Madison had texted me around 8 p.m. asking if I could come over, said we needed to talk. I drove straight to her apartment, heart pounding the whole way. When I walked in, she was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, face unreadable. What's going on? I asked. She didn't speak right away, just held out her phone. On the screen was a string of texts. From Brittany. Screenshots. Messages accusing me of lying to Madison. Saying I had serious emotional issues. That I was dangerous when pushed. That I cheated on an ex and covered it up. All lies. All delivered with perfect, manipulative wording. Madison scrolled down. She said you confessed to her. That you regret it but don't want to admit it to me. Is any of that true? I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. No, absolutely not. None of that happened. She's making it up. But why would she lie? I didn't have an answer then. But I do now. Because Brittany wasn't trying to protect Madison. She wasn't concerned. She was jealous. Jealous of our happiness. Jealous of the fact that for once, someone in our family was happy and stable and in love, and it wasn't her. She didn't want Madison. She just didn't want me to have her. Madison didn't break up with me that night, but she asked for space. And Brittany? She acted like nothing had happened, smiled at me the next morning, offered to make eggs. I didn't eat. I didn't speak. And that was the moment I decided I wasn't going to let her get away with this. The next morning, I didn't say anything. Not right away. I needed to think, to cool off, to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, I was misunderstanding something, that there was some angle I hadn't considered. Because despite everything, the manipulation, the lies, she was still my sister. And part of me still wanted to believe she could be reasoned with. That part of me was dead by the end of the day. I waited until that evening. Brittany was in the living room, scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just tried to detonate my relationship from the inside out. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Can we talk? She looked up, innocent as ever. Sure. What's up? I walked in, closed the door behind me, and said, flat out, I saw the messages you sent Madison. Her smile didn't even drop. She just set her phone down, leaned back on the couch, and said, So? I repeated, stunned. That's all you have to say? She shrugged. You've always been naive, Ryan. I figured someone should warn her before she got in too deep. My jaw tightened. Warn her? About what? Lies. Not lies, she said smoothly. Just things you never talk about. She was calm, cold, almost rehearsed. You told her I cheated, I said. I never cheated on anyone in my life. She doesn't know that. And you told her I was unstable, that I was dangerous. She tilted her head slightly. You get angry when you're cornered. Everyone knows that. That part made my blood go cold. Because that was the setup. Paint me as unstable. So if I pushed back, she could say she was right all along. Classic Brittany. I stepped closer. I want to know why, I said, staring right at her. Why are you doing this? Why sabotage me? She rolled her eyes. You really don't get it, do you? No, I said. So explain it. She stood up, arms crossed, like she was about to give a TED Talk. All my life, Ryan, I've been the one keeping this family together. I'm the one who helps Mom with her bills. I'm the one who shows up to holidays. I'm the one who checks in. You? You disappear for 2 years, start dating a girl who looks like a magazine model, and suddenly everyone's obsessed with how great your life is. I blinked. You're upset because people are happy for me? I'm upset, she said sharply, because I'm alone. Because I did everything right, and somehow you're the one who ends up with the fairy tale. And that's my fault? She didn't answer that, because she knew how bad it sounded. You know what? She said after a moment, voice lower. You deserved it. After everything. After what? Brittany? She hesitated, then mumbled, after choosing her over me. That was the moment it all clicked. This wasn't about Madison. Not really. This was about control. Brittany had always liked being needed. The one people came to. The one who sacrificed and made sure everyone knew it. But when I started pulling away, building something of my own, creating space, choosing someone else, she felt abandoned. And instead of talking about it, she went to war. You could have talked to me, I said quietly. You could have said any of this. She scoffed. Right. And you would have listened. I would have tried. Well, she said, grabbing her phone. Too late now. That night, I told her she needed to move out. Not immediately, but within 2 weeks. She acted shocked. You're kicking me out? Your own sister? No, I said. You made that decision when you tried to sabotage my life. She didn't argue, just stormed into her room and slammed the door. But the damage was already done. Madison wasn't answering my texts. I'd told her what Brittany said, that it was lies, manipulation, but trust doesn't rebuild overnight. We were in limbo, and I was stuck living under the same roof as the person who caused it. That weekend, I stayed with a friend across town. I needed space, distance. But even there, I couldn't stop thinking, what if Brittany wasn't done? Then, 3 days later, I got a knock on my door. A man in a delivery vest handed me an envelope. Inside, a cease and desist letter from a lawyer, alleging that I was harassing my sister, damaging her mental health, and creating a hostile living environment. I stood there on the porch, stunned. She wasn't just trying to ruin my relationship. She was setting me up for something worse. Holding that envelope in my hand, I stood there on the porch for what felt like an hour. A cease and desist letter from my own sister, accusing me of harassment and emotional abuse in my own home. I read the whole thing twice. It was full of vague language, legal fluff, and words like pattern of hostility and verbal intimidation. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. But mostly, I just felt hollow. Because this wasn't just sibling drama anymore. Brittany was trying to build a case, a paper trail. That made me the problem. And if I wasn't careful, she could win. I called my buddy Mark, a lawyer I'd gone to college with. He wasn't a specialist in family law, but he was sharp and had enough experience to know what was real and what was just scare tactics. He came over that night and read the letter while we sat on my back patio. "This isn't a lawsuit," he said. "It's an intimidation move. Can she actually get me kicked out of my own place?" He shook his head. "Not without a real legal basis. And she doesn't have one, not based on this letter alone. But Ryan, you need to protect yourself. Because this tells me she's not done." That's when he gave me the advice that changed everything. Start recording. Every interaction. Every text. Every voicemail. She's trying to paint you as unstable. Don't give her an inch. So that's what I did. I turned my guest bedroom into a fortress of receipts. Every conversation we had, recorded. Every weird message she sent to mutual friends, screenshotted. I even set up a nanny cam in the living room, legal in Texas, since it's my home, and it recorded common areas only. And it didn't take long for the mask to slip. 3 days later, Brittany had another breakdown in the kitchen. She cornered me while I was making coffee, threw a pan into the sink, and started sobbing about how I was gaslighting her. "You're freezing me out," she cried. "You pretend like I don't even exist." I said nothing. I didn't need to, because the camera caught everything. No threats. No raised voice. Just me, calmly making coffee while she spun a performance worthy of an award. She stormed off again, and I walked straight to my laptop and backed up the footage. But things didn't stop there. Over the next week, she told my mom that I was having violent outbursts. She told Madison's friend that I had a drinking problem. And one night, I came home to find one of her friends, a girl I barely knew, sitting on my porch with a concerned look. "She said you were getting physical," she said, hesitant, that she didn't feel safe. I looked her in the eyes and said, "Would you like to come inside and see the cameras?" She didn't. She just nodded, awkwardly, and left. That was the moment I knew. I couldn't just play defense anymore. I had to take control. I started compiling a digital folder, timestamps, clips, emails, messages. I even created a written log of events with dates and direct quotes. Mark reviewed everything. "You're building a solid case," he said. "If she tries anything more extreme, like filing for a protective order, or worse, you'll be ready." Would that really happen? He gave me a long look. "Ryan, she's already lying to people about you. She's trying to isolate you from your friends, from your girlfriend. This isn't just sabotage anymore. This is a smear campaign." He paused. "And if she keeps pushing, it could become defamation." Meanwhile, Madison and I were barely talking. The space she asked for had turned into full-on silence. I didn't blame her. She was caught in the middle of a storm she never asked for, between a man she loved and a sister who seemed completely unhinged. But the longer we were apart, the more it felt like Brittany was winning. Until one night, around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Madison, can we talk?" I drove to her place right away. She was waiting on the steps. She looked tired, guarded, but she didn't pull away when I hugged her. "I've been thinking," she said. "About everything. About what she said." I nodded. "I believe you," she said finally. "I just didn't want to believe she'd do something like this." "I have proof," I said softly. "I've been documenting everything. You can see it. All of it." She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "Okay." The next day, she came over. I showed her the recordings, the texts, the letter. I watched her expression go from confused to shocked to angry. "She's not just jealous," Madison whispered. "She's obsessed." "I know. She wanted me to think you were dangerous. She wanted everyone to think that." Madison stayed the night. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Because for the first time in weeks, she was starting to see what I'd known all along. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was warfare. And I wasn't going to fight it quietly anymore. It happened on a Monday morning. I had just poured myself a coffee, trying to focus on a proposal I'd been working on all weekend. Madison had finally started to come around again, and I was beginning to feel normal, like things might level out. And then I got the knock at the door. 2 uniformed officers stood on my porch. Polite, calm, but serious. "Are you Ryan Miller?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah. What's going on?" "You've been named in a request for a temporary protective order. We're here to serve the notice." I felt like I was dreaming, or maybe like I wasn't in my body at all. The officer handed me a packet, thick, stapled, full of vague accusations. Allegations that I had made my sister feel unsafe, that I had yelled threats, followed her around the house, and monitored her with hidden cameras. It was a fantasy novel built on slivers of truth and twisted into something unrecognizable. And the worst part? It looked official. Because it was. Temporary restraining orders in Texas can be issued quickly, often before the accused has a chance to respond. But they're temporary for a reason. There has to be a hearing. There has to be evidence. And that is where Brittany made her biggest mistake. She assumed I had none, but I had everything. I called Mark within minutes. He drove over immediately, looked through the documents, and said what I needed to hear. She just handed us the opening. We filed a countersuit within 48 hours. Defamation. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. And most importantly, a motion to have the restraining order dismissed based on fabricated claims. We submitted security footage from the house showing no aggression audio recordings of her calmly talking to me after supposedly being threatened, screenshots of texts where she admitted to pushing buttons to get a reaction, a detailed timeline of her behavior, including the brunch sabotage, messages to Madison, and the false breakdowns, and then we added one more thing, a sworn witness statement from Madison. Her testimony made everything real, because it wasn't just he said, she said anymore. It was her own lies unraveling from multiple sides. The day of the hearing came fast. We walked into Travis County Court with a folder thick enough to make a judge squint. Brittany was already there, sitting in the front row with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman who clearly didn't expect much pushback, until she saw our stack of evidence. I didn't look at Brittany. I didn't have to. For once, she was the one waiting for someone else to speak. The judge called us up. Brittany's lawyer went first. She gave a passionate, polished speech about fear, safety, and emotional abuse, vague enough to be persuasive, but lacking anything specific. The judge asked for details. Dates. Events. There weren't many. Then it was our turn. Mark handed over the binder. He walked the judge through the videos, the timeline, the text messages, the letter from Brittany's friend admitting she was just trying to stir things up. And then came Madison's written testimony. Brittany told me Ryan had a history of cheating and violence. She said he admitted to it in private. That was a lie. Ryan never once raised his voice. He was patient, respectful, and completely blindsided by her manipulation. I now believe Brittany's actions were calculated and malicious. The judge read in silence, then looked at Brittany, then looked at me. 10 minutes later, the restraining order was denied. The judge's words: no credible evidence of threats or harassment. Claims appear exaggerated or false. But it didn't stop there, because our motion for damages was accepted. Brittany had two choices: go to trial for defamation and risk paying even more if she lost, or settle. She settled, quietly, privately, embarrassingly. The agreement included a written apology, a non-disclosure clause preventing her from spreading further lies, and a $12,000 payout for damages and legal fees, $12,000. From the sister who once mocked me for never getting ahead. She moved out the same week. No big goodbye, no drama, just packed boxes and silence. I watched her drive away through the window and felt nothing. No victory, no satisfaction, just quiet and peace. I thought it was over. After the court hearing, after the settlement, after Brittany packed up her things and left, I really believed that would be the end of it. But people like Brittany, they don't just lose. They rewrite. It started small. A message from my cousin, Jenna, who I hadn't heard from in months. Hey, I heard about what happened with you and Brittany. Are you okay? I replied with a short, yeah, I'm fine. But something about her tone felt off. So I asked, what exactly did you hear? She hesitated, then sent me a wall of text. Brittany had been calling family members, saying I sued her out of nowhere, claiming I'd manipulated her, kicked her out, then humiliated her in court, saying she was broke now because of me, that I'd recorded her without her knowledge and twisted everything to look like I was the victim. I felt the rage rise, sharp, hot, immediate. But then I breathed, because this time, I was prepared. I didn't go on a rant. I didn't call the entire family screaming. I just messaged Jenna and said, would you be open to seeing the full story? She agreed. I sent her the text screenshots, the clips, Madison's written statement, the cease and desist letter Brittany filed, the footage of Brittany fabricating a breakdown in the kitchen, the settlement agreement Brittany signed. Jenna read every word, then called me crying. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. She made it sound like you destroyed her. I nodded. That's what she's always done. She spins it just enough to make herself the victim. That's when I realized, if I didn't speak up now, she'd get away with it again. She wasn't just lying to strangers anymore. She was trying to poison the only people I had left who still cared. I didn't want to wage a war, but I wasn't going to let her rewrite my life either. So I sent out a single message, group text, cousins, aunts, a few close family members. Nothing dramatic, just the truth. Hi everyone. I know Brittany's been reaching out. I won't get into the details, But I want you to know that what happened between us didn't come from nowhere. I documented everything. I never raised my voice. Never threatened her. She tried to sabotage my relationship, and when I asked her to move out, she escalated it legally. I responded by protecting myself, that's all. If you want the full story, I'm happy to show you. If not, that's okay. Just please don't assume you know what happened based on one side. I expected silence. Instead, I got replies. Dozens of them. Some shocked, some apologetic. But most of them said the same thing. She's always been like this. I thought something felt off. You don't have to explain yourself to us anymore. The support didn't erase the damage, but it changed something inside me. Because for the first time, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't the quiet brother, the one who lets things slide, the one who avoids confrontation for the sake of peace. I had finally stood up, not just to Brittany, but to the version of myself that let her walk all over me for years. Madison saw it too. You look lighter, she said one night while we were watching a movie. Like you're finally breathing for the first time. I think I am, I said. We started seeing each other more again. Slowly. Not because I begged for her back, but because I showed her I was no longer carrying the chaos she once had to tiptoe around. I didn't bring Brittany up anymore. Didn't check her social media. Didn't ask what the rest of the family was saying. Because I didn't care. I had my truth. And I had peace. And those two things were worth more than any fake apology ever could be. It had been quiet for months. No texts. No emails. No phone calls. No weird messages through cousins or mutual friends. It was the longest stretch of peace I'd had since Brittany re-entered my life. And I started to believe maybe, just maybe, that chapter was finally closed. But Brittany? She doesn't do quiet. Not unless she's building up to something. It was a Thursday, the kind of day where nothing's really wrong, but everything feels kind of off. I had just stepped out of a meeting with a vendor when one of the receptionists at my office flagged me down. There's someone out front asking for you, she said. Didn't have an appointment, but she said it was important. I felt my stomach drop before she even said the name. Brittany. I didn't move right away. Part of me wondered if I should call security. The other part, the calmer, more grounded version of me that had been built over the last 6 months, knew I didn't need to. Because she couldn't hurt me anymore. I walked to the front lobby and there she was. Standing by the glass doors, arms crossed, oversized sunglasses on her face even though we were indoors. She looked tired. Thinner. Angry. I opened the door halfway. What are you doing here, Brittany? She stepped forward like she was going to hug me, but stopped when I didn't move. You blocked me, she said flatly. I did. You cut me off. I had to. She blinked, like she hadn't expected me to be so calm. I just want to talk, she said. 5 minutes. I stepped outside and let the door shut behind me. You've got 2. Her expression shifted, frustration, then something close to desperation. I made a mistake, she said. Okay. I got caught up in my emotions. I was hurting. And you wanted me to hurt too. I didn't think it would go that far. But it did. And you didn't stop it. You escalated it, again and again. She looked away. I lost everything, she whispered. People won't talk to me. Madison's friends think I'm crazy. Even Mom keeps her distance now. I stayed quiet. Because I wasn't going to say, I told you so. That wasn't what this was about. I'm not here to make you feel bad, she continued. I'm just tired. I can't go back to who I was. I don't even like that person anymore. And maybe that was true. Maybe not. But either way, it wasn't my job to fix her. I hope you find peace, Brittany, I said. But you're not going to find it here. You won't even let me apologize? I'll let you talk. That's all I owe you. She shook her head slowly. I thought we were family. I met her eyes. We are. But family doesn't mean you get to light me on fire just because you're cold. She didn't reply. She just stood there for a second longer, like she wanted to say something else, then turned around and walked away. That was the last time I saw her. I don't know where she is now. Last I heard, she moved out of state, started some kind of online business, living with a roommate, keeping quiet, at least for now. And honestly, I wish her well, but I don't miss her, because what I gained in her absence is everything I thought I had to sacrifice to keep her close. Madison and I are stronger now. She told me once, it wasn't just about what your sister did. It was how you responded to it. That's when I realized who you really are. And I'll never forget that. Because I didn't win by fighting dirty. I didn't win by shouting louder. I won by documenting, setting boundaries, and finally choosing myself. So now I want to ask you, the person watching or listening to this, what would you have done in my place? Would you have kept trying to fix things for the sake of peace? Or would you have cut it off like I did and protected your own future? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear how you would have handled it. Because sometimes the hardest battles aren't the loud ones. They're the quiet ones you fight at home, with people who are supposed to love you the most. And the bravest thing you can do is walk away and not look back.